Most camping and bushcrafting videos make it look like you need a truck full of expensive gear. You don't. If you're new to wilderness camping, I'm going to show you the absolute basics of what you need to take camping, and then I'm going to show you what I take with me. Now, for the record, this isn't just your typical backyard or campground camping. This is wilderness camping or bushcrafting. This is stuff you'll actually need if you want to make it overnight out there. Now, I know it's boring and simple, but you need to make sure you have the right clothing on. And I know what you're thinking. You're not going to go streaking through the woods trying to bushcraft when you're naked, most of the time. But you need to make sure you have the right clothing according to what the weather is going to be. So first of all, check ahead to see what the weather is going to be like while you're out, and plan ahead because weather can change very quickly depending on where you are. First, always make sure you have extra socks. Your feet will get wet no matter what. Whether it's sweat, rain, snow, whatever, your feet are going to get wet. You're going to need to change socks. And you don't want to have to go without socks or just have wet feet the whole time because it can make a very bad experience. Also, make sure you have gloves and a hat. If it's wintertime, make sure whatever the weather, you have layers so that as you heat up and cool down, you can take layers off. You really don't want to get sweaty, and you really don't want to be overheating if it gets too warm, and you don't want to be too cold if it gets too cold. Number two is your shelter. You need to make sure you have something to protect you from the elements, the sun, or whatever the weather may be. Something could be as simple as a tarp or a larger tent. You could go with a hammock, or you could even just go with a waterproof sleeping bag cover. You just need something to keep the rain and dew off you in the morning, or keep you protected from the elements when the weather turns bad. Also, you'll want to remember if you have a hammock or a tent, something that requires a little bit of setup, you want to try to do that beforehand so you're familiar with it so that if you're in a bad situation or if the weather turns ugly or just even if it gets dark, you know what you're doing and you're familiar with all the pieces of what goes into what you're setting up. Number three is something for water. You might need filtration, you might need something to boil water in, and you might just carry water in with you. I prefer to carry water in with me, or at least as much as I can before I have to filter because it's simple and I'd rather just carry the weight and have water that I know and trust and not have to do the whole filtering process. But if you need to boil water, you want to take something to boil it in, and you also want to take something to filter it with just in case you run out or it spills or something happens, or even it freezing and you need to get new water. I would recommend a Sawyer Mini because they're very small and compact, and it also comes with a straw and a little bag that you can use to store water so that you can always take it on the go if you just wanted to take a filter rather than taking a full bottle. But there are plenty of options like a life straw or just a bottle that has a filter built in. Something like this is you put the water in the bottle and there's actually a filter in the straw, so as you suck it up, it filters it through. And there's plenty of other options out there. You just have to look around to see what you like, and you'll have to try stuff. The other thing I would really recommend is having some sort of electrolyte powder. LMNT is great, but there's plenty of options out there. This is just what I use. But extra electrolytes are really important, especially when you're working hard and building up a sweat like you would be when you're camping or bushcrafting. You can also take stuff that's not water. It's nice to have a good drink while you're out. Something like a pre-mixed electrolyte drink that you like, or just something that you really enjoy drinking. Number four is food, and you could make an entire video on what food to take and how to prepare it. There's so much out there, it could be a whole video in itself, so I'm not going to do any over explaining, but you want to make sure that you have enough food to keep your energy up while you're doing tasks that take up a lot of energy. And make sure that you have stuff that actually tastes good, because while you're out there you want to have a good time and enjoy good food. Just make sure you know how to prepare what you're making over a campfire or a camp stove because it is different from cooking over a normal stove at home. Number five is your sleep system. You need to make sure that you have a good sleep system, something that prioritizes weather and comfort. You need to make sure that whatever you're sleeping in is adjustable for the weather that you're having and that it's warm or cold enough for what you're doing. You don't want to take a very heavy sleeping bag for warm weather and you don't want to take a very thin sleeping bag for cold weather. And then you need to make sure that you're comfortable when you sleep. If you don't have a sleeping pad and you need one, or you don't have a pillow and you need one, you need to make sure that you're getting good rest because again, you're spending a lot of energy out there and you don't want to be lacking sleep when you need the energy. Another tip, if you're in the extreme cold, you need to make sure that you have some sort of pad or insulation underneath you for when you're sleeping because all that cold seeps out of you through the ground because that's your cold contact point. So make sure you have something beneath you as well as your good sleeping bag if you're in the extreme cold. Number six is fire. And what this does is two main things and sort of a third thing. You can use it for heat, you can use it to cook, and you can sort of use it for security depending on the situation. Again, this is something that takes a lot of practice. So you need to make sure that when you're making fire, you're doing it at home, you're doing it in your campfire. Just do it whenever you can and build up those skills. And remember, whatever you're taking, whether that be a lighter, it could be matches, it could be a little blowtorch, whatever you want to take, make sure that you use it at home and get comfortable with it before you go out and use it when you actually need to, so you don't end up in a bad situation. Also, know what you need the fire for. If you're just using it for cooking or you're in an area where you can't actually have an open fire, a camp stove is a great option. Something that uses propane tanks is awesome, or there's other options out there. Just make sure you know how to use it and make sure you know the rules and regulations as you go out into wherever you're going. Number seven is knives. You need a blade almost in every situation that you're out camping, whether it's to open food or do some bushcrafting or to baton a stick. Whatever you need it for, you'll need a blade. I would recommend something cheap like a Mora knife to get started. They're super simple, super sharp, super durable. And I got this back in the day for $11. I think they're 15-ish now. But there's other great options. You could do something like a cold steel Tonto. Or if you know what you're doing and you're just going to open some packages, something like a simple folder would be great too. It just depends on what situation. And again, make sure your knives are sharp, make sure they're well taken care of, and make sure you know how to use them and how they function before you go out and do all the camping and bushcrafting that you're going to do. Also, make sure you have a fire starter. Fire starters are vitally important, especially depending on the weather and what situation you're in. Sometimes they're even necessary, even for the most skilled survivalists, campers, bushcrafters, whatever you want to call them. Make sure you have a fire starter. It just makes things simple. And who are you trying to impress? You're just out there to have a good time. Number 8 is light and navigation. And why these two go together is because oftentimes you're navigating at night and you need a flashlight to navigate at night. Navigation is something extremely important because you don't want to get lost. You need to know where you're going. So a map and a compass is nice. If you don't know how to use a compass, I would recommend a GPS if you can have it. And oftentimes where you're going camping nowadays, you have a phone that has a GPS on it and you still get signal. So use that if you can. It's not cheating. And as for lights, there's tons of options. I would recommend multiple options that you're going to take. A handheld flashlight is often great, but the most important thing I think you're going to need is a headlamp. A lot of times you need to be hands-free and one hand just doesn't cut it, especially when you're having to hold a flashlight and you don't want to have to put it in your mouth or try to hold it in the crevice of your neck or anything. So at least one headlamp, especially with extra batteries. An actual lantern is great too, something that you can set up in your tent or near your shelter to just have ambient light other than your fire. It's really great to see and it lights up a tent really well if you're in a tent. Something small really works great too, something like this O-light. It just goes on your keychain. You can take it off and it turns on automatically. It's extremely bright. You just want to make sure that everything that you have, if it's rechargeable, is charged, and then make sure you have extra batteries for stuff because stuff dies and you don't want to go out without light. Number 9, and my final thing on the list, is a good bag. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be an expensive bag. It just needs to be a bag that works for what you're doing. If you're going on a very short, simple trip and you don't have a lot of gear, a cheap bag might work for you. This one was $15 a long, long time ago. It's one I actually used for school and it still works. It still holds together. Everything's nice and sturdy. No straps are broken, no zippers are broken. Sometimes you can get lucky and find really cheap stuff that just works well. This is from a big box store, but even heavier duty bags from that place just don't work and hold up as well as they used to. And also make sure that you know the size of the bag you're going to need. You don't want an oversized pack if you're just taking a small amount of gear, and you don't want a pack that's way too small that you have to shove everything in and that's super tight and uncomfortable. Even something like a small duffel bag will work depending on the situation. You just want to make sure that you have adequate space and make sure it's something that's not going to just fall apart on you. Again, there are cheaper options. You just want to make sure that whatever you're getting holds up to what you're doing. I would recommend not doing a very cheap bag on a long run and make sure you test what you have, make sure you get a good feel for it, and make sure it's something that's going to hold up. The bag fell. So there's the 9 basic things I would recommend that you have. Just make sure you have everything down. Make sure you use it before you go out. That's so important. Use it before you go out and know what you're doing. Know how everything works so that when you get out there, you're not fumbling around trying to figure stuff out and it just turns into a bad time. Also, if there's anything that you think I missed that you absolutely need to go camping or bushcrafting, let me know down in the comments. Okay, so now quickly we're going to run through something that I would probably take if I went on a trip. Let's say it was a warmer day and a cooler night, so I need to expect to be hot during the day. So I would have something like a flannel on with something underneath for the cool of the morning. I could take this off and have a t-shirt on, but the flannel would keep me somewhat warm, especially while I'm moving around if it got cooler at all. Then I would have some sort of pants that can handle what I'm doing. Long pants usually always, just no insulation if it's going to be warm during the day and cool during the night. I should be able to stay warm enough in my sleeping bag. And I have my pack to carry everything. Everything is just shoved in here right now, but this is what I would carry my stuff in. A medium-sized pack is usually what I'd like unless I'm going for many, many days on a trip. So here's what I have in my bag. I have a water bottle, a large water bottle full of clean water. And then I have a tasty drink to go along with it, sort of a comfort item. And then again, it's electrolytes, so it's good. And I also have extra electrolyte mixes that I would take with me. And as a backup, I also have a water filter in a baggie so that if I do get wet for some reason or my bag drops in a river or something, I don't get yucky water all over my clean filter. Food, I have a can of beans and something to cook it in. Not exactly what I would take, but just an example. I have extra socks for my clothing as well. That goes along with my clothing. For fire, I have in a waterproof bag multiple ways to start a fire, including multiple fire starters. So fire starters and a candle, which can help. You can light the candle and then use that instead of just holding a match or a lighter underneath something, which is really helpful. And you can also drip the wax on materials that burn quickly, but you want to burn longer, which the wax helps with. and that's all in a waterproof bag so it couldn't get wet. For a blade, I have my Mora knife, which is one of my favorites. It's cheap and simple. I have other knives, but that's just my go-to. And plus, then if I lose it, it's hard to lose because it's orange, and if I do lose it, it's really easy to replace. I also have sunglasses, which are a must-have for me. I always need sunglasses, double protected. They're in a little baggie here, and then they're in a hard case. I really struggle with any brightness at all, so those are really important to me. And again, if you have different things like that that you need, or special pills or medication or whatever, you need to make sure that you bring that. And even if it's just something that makes it a lot easier to be comfortable, which I don't need sunglasses, but I really like them. So make sure you keep that in mind for stuff that you want to bring with you. Then for lighting, I have a headlamp that has multiple modes, and then a handheld flashlight as well. And obviously on my keys, I would have that little flashlight that I have with me all the time. And that is it for the bag, except for maybe a couple other comfort items that I might bring. I might bring like a book or my Bible, or maybe a pad to jot down some notes with, but that's all that I would need. And, and then I forgot, but going along with that navigation, I would have my phone that has maps downloaded on it and a GPS on it, and probably a printed map as well if it was an area that I was unfamiliar with, but most of the places that I do shorter camping trips are places that I've already been before. Then for my sleep system and shelter, if it's going to be a cooler night, I usually always bring this. It's just a little blanket. It barely covers me, but it's more of a comfort item than anything. And then it's just a little extra layer that I can throw on top of me, or something I could roll up and use as a small pillow, because I don't usually take a pillow. I just don't find them necessary. And it's extra pack weight, and I sleep fine without it. So I don't usually take a pad either, so no pad unless it's really, really cold and I want to keep the heat in the ground. I don't usually take a pad either, so I wouldn't have one of those unless it's really, really cold. This is the outer part of my sleep system. So this is my waterproof cover. This would be my shelter, keep the dew off me, keep the frost off me if it got cold. And there's just another layer so that if I'm on the ground, anything wet or anything that's a little sharper, it'll kind of keep that from poking me as much. And then my thinner sleeping bag insert, thinner sleeping bag, which would keep me plenty warm on a cooler night as long as it's not below freezing. So that's my whole sleep system. That's my whole sleep system and the bag that it all goes in. So that's pretty much everything I would take if I was going, except for, again, maybe a few comfort items like a book or a notepad. I might download a movie or an audiobook on my phone if I get really bored, but most of the time it's just going to be spent bushcrafting and stuff. So there you have it. That's all I would take. And again, some final tips for beginners: knowing what you're going to take and knowing what you're going to like. There's a lot of videos. A lot of it is expensive. A lot of it is cheap. You have to mix and match. Some stuff that's really cheap is going to work really good. Like the Mora knife is a great example. You're going to have people that use these all the time and love them, and you're going to have people that take $300, $400 knives and they swear by those and will only use those. It just depends on what you like. And same with backpacks and clothing and sleeping bags. This is a $300 sleeping bag system. I know people who have $100 sleeping bags and have done the same stuff that I've done. I've been with people when it's been well below freezing and there's snow on the ground, and they had $50, $100 sleeping bags rather than my $300 one, and they were fine other than needing more fire to keep. But again, to know all this stuff, to know what to take, to know how you want to pack things, what pack you want to use, what's comfortable, what clothing you want to wear, even, you just have to go out and actually use it and wear it and try. Just keep trying and you'll figure out what you actually like. And again, you want to use what you like. You're going to hear a lot of people saying what they would recommend. Even if you go hunting or fishing on these trips that you're doing eventually, you're going to have people that tell you, you need to go here, you need to go there. And a lot of that advice you can listen to and should listen to, but some people say you have to use this type of fishing pole, or you have to use this type of gun, or you have to use this type of tent. You just have to try stuff. If you can borrow stuff before having to buy it, that's great because you don't have to spend the money. But just try stuff before you go and spend a ton of money, and see if you can borrow stuff to try it and use it right away. And then you'll know if you like it or not. You can return it, or if you want to change it, you can modify your stuff. There's just 1,000 things you can do once you actually get into the hobby. Another thing, do not be afraid to not quit, but if you have to leave, leave. If you try your first cold weather camping trip and it's absolutely freezing and you can't get warm, it's time to leave. You're not a failure. I went out at 16 trying to do my first camping trip, and I got scared and I left. And I do regret it to this day, but it would have been better than staying up all night and being afraid. The last thing, bring backups for your backups. Don't bring one way to start a fire. Don't bring two ways to start a fire. Bring three. Redundancies, you need them. If you have batteries for your flashlight, make sure you have extra batteries for your flashlight. If you think it's charged, make sure you have a portable charger. Make sure you have a portable charger for your phone and extra cords. Make sure you have extra water and extra ways to get water. You need extras of everything just in case. You don't want to put yourself in a situation that could harm you or risk others getting harmed as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informational for you guys and that it helped out for beginners. and it was just a refresher for people who do it a lot. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment of what you think I missed or what you think you would improve, maybe some items that you would suggest for any beginners. Let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye.